All right, my friends, starting this off a little bit differently. If you have found yourself on this episode with Dr. Kelly Flanagan, I promise you that you need this. I promise you that this will change your life. It is one small step, though. There are some other opportunities to get his book, to potentially join his online community. But this is shaping my life and going to change in a positive way my relationships, my relationship with myself and with those closest to me. So I highly encourage you to stick around, make some time, listen to this, sit with it, and see what starts to shift inside of you. All right, my friends, welcome to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast, where I interview truly incredible fathers, gaining wisdom from their lives, their stories, for you and I to grow in our own craft of fatherhood. I'm your guide, Ned Shout, father to 5 kiddos, currently ages 13 to 20, and husband to my rad wife, Sarah, working on our 21st year of marriage. So yes, I am in the thick of it with you, and I'm working daily to rebel against the low expectations for fathers and create a world where fathers know who they are as they show up for their families. You and I have an incredible opportunity to impact our world through the way we show up and embrace fatherhood. The role of the father is to serve, guide, steward, protect, and of course, find joy and have fun in the messiness of this whole thing. Today's guest is my friend, Dr. Kelly Flanagan. This is his second time on the show. Today, we unpack his book, The Road Less Triggered. And again, like I said in this intro, this is truly life-shaping, life-shifting conversation. Step into this with an open heart to see what nuggets implant themselves in your mind, your heart, and your soul that can shift the things that are most important to you. And that is you and your life, your marriage, your relationships with your family. God has given us an opportunity to steward this whole thing called family well. And this man's life work is truly a shift. It's an opportunity and awareness that many of us may not have. So enjoy meeting my friend, Dr. Kelly Flanagan. My friends, I love to welcome Dr. Kelly Flanagan. Kelly, welcome to the podcast.
It is so good to be here, Ned. Thank you.
Bro, I've been excited about this. Thank you for your work and thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So, dude, we just literally, I'm just going to open up and say it. Might as well start off with the real thing is you've been on the podcast before. We talked about your book, The Unhiding of Elijah Campbell. Mm-hmm. One of my favorites. I think it's required reading if you're 30 years old, or you gotta read it. Mm. Every year I ship out, 75 to 100 books, of I pick, here's my favorite book from last year. And I write a little letter and I send it to 75-ish people. Unhiding of Elijah Campbell was one of those.
Wow.
This book that we're here to talk about today, The Road Less Triggered, will be that book for this year.
Amazing. Thank you.
And I've read, it's May, but it's so good. It's so good. My team right now, so I have a company with 22 employees. We have book club every month. We just talked about it yesterday. So we read the first, whatever, the reading requirement was for the last week. And so we talked about it yesterday on our call.
Amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Amazing. So that's what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah.
As I'm getting ready to be on the podcast with you, it's 7:55 and I'm listening to Hazlitt. I'm super pumped. I'm getting in the zone, ready to do this. And then 8:01 shows up and instantly my heart gets overwhelmed with Kelly's not showing up, or this, something more important came up. And I'm reading through my notes and I literally wrote down 3 different childhood friends that I can remember sitting at my mom's work, wishing one of them would call me back. Wow. Calling one who I can see he's across the street playing basketball, not calling me back to hang out with him.
Yep.
Even to a year ago, calling a friend, I'm supposed to go to his house for the weekend and I land at the airport and he's just not texting me back right away. And instead of thinking he's in a meeting or something's going on, my heart's immediately triggered into something better came up for them. I'm not important.
Yes. Yes.
And
I feel that, man.
And I noticed it even as we're jumping on this call. It's 1 minute, I could go from being super pumped to feeling my heart being oh gosh, something else. This isn't happening.
You held so much in awareness in that moment though.
And I hate it.
I have to apologize. I call it Kelly Standard Time. I run 3 minutes behind everybody else. I've been trying to change it for 30 years. I can't do it.
No, there's no apology
but I'm
needed.
in a sense, I'm happy to be your teacher.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's just start with that. Like this idea of triggering, what does it mean to be triggered? Like I'll give a joke, to my kids. Like when I see a grown man wearing sunglasses indoors, I'm like, this is triggering to me. I'm like, why are you wearing sunglasses inside? And it's just strictly a judgment. It's not really anything other than me
Yes.
just being judgmental for whatever reason.
Right.
So when you talk about triggering, like what's
Yeah.
the basis for this? To use a word that could be taken like,
Right.
like, okay,
Right.
whatever.
Yeah. Well, when I settled on that title, it was the only title that I felt would allow me in good conscience to put the word triggered on the cover of a book. The Road Less Triggered, because The Road Less Traveled is one of my favorite books of all time. But I knew as soon as we did that I was going to have to explain very early on in the book what I meant by that, especially because of exactly what you're saying. So like, I think there's a couple extremes there with triggered. One is, as a clinical psychologist, triggered is a clinical term. It's something that refers to an experience that someone with a diagnosed post-traumatic stress disorder has, like a combat veteran who's been in war and now a car backfires and he's triggered. And that means he's literally triggered to feel as if the past is happening all over again right now in this moment. And that's not exactly what I mean by that, by triggered in this book. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the other extreme, I joke in the book, you get a TikTok influencer at Starbucks who gets the wrong kind of latte or cold foam, and they start telling, a million followers that they're triggered. It's a little bit more like what you're describing with the sunglasses indoors, right? It's more just like, ugh, I don't like that. And so what we're talking about here, though, is actually, it's far more common and yet far more impactful than either one of those. And it's this repetitive moment that happens in relationships. And it happens in a 3-stage process. Our nervous system gets triggered. Our heart starts to close to what's going on in that moment. And then we choose, essentially, we don't realize we're making a choice, but we basically unconsciously choose to let our heart close and to exist in a place of resistance to and defense against what's happening. And I wrote this book because I have discovered that the practice of open-heartedness is the way to turn that triggered moment into togetherness. But most of us don't think we have a choice over that closing or opening. And I wanted to restore to people that power of choice to choose an open heart in their triggered moments so they can navigate it in a way that increases connection rather than conflict.
Man, so I'm going to because I've been aware of this now, right? So like I've been in your book for about 5-6 weeks. I'm aware of when my heart is opening and closing.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of frustrating that the book isn't how to make it so your heart doesn't close.
Nope.
But that's, I think, really, the key to this whole thing is like there isn't enough psychedelics or meditation or whatever to remove that nervous system like my heart just did 10 minutes ago.
Exactly. And I think that's an important thing to say right out front. I'm glad you're saying it. Like the first 2 stages of that process, your nervous system activating, we don't want to disable that ability, right? Because you're walking through a dark parking garage at midnight and steps behind you, your nervous system better react quickly. And we also really can't stop our heart from closing. We're designed so that if we feel like we've got too much to handle emotionally in the moment, we can close off to it. It's actually, it's built in, it's by design, it's not a glitch. It's a feature, not a bug, but we need to know how to be empowered to choose that moment rather than the moment choosing us. That's the difference. That's the thing we can change.
Yeah. And I wasn't going to go here yet, but since it's here, the idea, like, I think in the moment I could be like, dude, don't be a baby. Like, you're a 42-year-old man, right? You're not 10 anymore. You're not 16 anymore. But I think one of the things that was helpful in the book, and again, it's not like I've meditated on this enough, but this idea of like being a tree, and you have all these rings of your life.
Yes.
And so to be able to acknowledge, I think a lot of us men may be like, and you even talk about it in your book as you're using an example of a Henry, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like, I don't go to the past. I don't want to go to the past. I don't need to go to the past. What's the
Right.
point of going to the past? And like unpacking why X or Y happened to me.
Mm,
But maybe talk a little bit about, me being able to just like, as a 42-year-old, knowing what I know now, jumping next to that 12-year-old inside of me already, being like, yo,
mm,
dude, it's all good. It's all
right.
good, or you're loved, or I see you, or that does suck. You know what I mean? And
Right.
it still sucks. So where's the value, the benefit, and your kind of view of how to acknowledge, I guess, the different versions of ourselves?
Yeah. Well, I resonate with, guys, people in general who say, what's the point of going into the past? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think going into your past to sort of go on a search and destroy mission is a big waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
What I've discovered is that we don't have to go into the past because the past comes into the present, right? That when we're being
Yeah.
triggered,
Uh-huh.
that's what's happening is the past is
Uh-huh.
sort of pressing its way into the present. I started off The Unhiding of Elijah Campbell with the sentence, the past is always behind us, but it is also always within us, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what this book does is it takes it a step further and it says it's literally baked into our nervous system. Um, and it's baked into the part of your nervous system, the lower brain, that can't tell time. It literally is designed not to tell time because like
Hmm.
if you're being confronted with a tiger on the Serengeti, you're designed, your entire being is designed not to go, is this like the tiger I ran into yesterday? That one was friendly. Maybe this one's
Hmm.
friendly too. Like that would
Hmm.
be catastrophic. So your
Hmm.
lower brain is designed to not be able to tell the difference between yesterday and today. And all of our experiences enter us through the lower brain. That's how they
Hmm.
get processed first. So if an experience today resembles an experience from 20 years ago, the brain will process that as if the experience from 20 years ago is happening today. It's by
Hmm.
design. It's so that you react quickly. And so that is literally through our physiology, the way that the past sort of enters into the present. Now, working with that, I think it's much more helpful to think of, like you said, 12-year-old boy in me, being able to come alongside that old reaction in the present is a way to integrate it and start to bring your higher mind back online.
Yeah, and I have sort of thought like the 12-year-old is dead. You know what I mean? Like the
Mm,
12-year-old is not here anymore. But that's not really true, right? If something from 20 years ago can pop up, when you say that, like the past enters the present, I think we all go,
yes.
okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, I think as Christians, two things, and maybe just when you think about counseling and therapy or whatever. One is we
Mm-hmm.
think about going back to that moment where whatever happened, and we like reframe it with some different meaning.
Mm,
So there's that thing that sometimes I think, and like what you're talking about is less helpful, because it's like, no, that shit happened and it hurt and it sucked. And you're more like, just sit with that pain and acknowledge that that was a bummer, versus trying to create some sort of meaning around it. So speak to that, as well as I loathe when we're like, well, God has everything happen for a reason. And so it's like,
mm,
that's really a rough one. Um, and so we try to make meaning out of something, versus maybe using it just to grow. So, your thoughts on both those things that I think we can tend to do?
yeah, I get the impulse. There's a phrase that's I think one that I'm guilty of more, more than I'd like to admit, which is spiritually bypassing, right? Which is
Mm,
I would love to come up with a tidy way to reframe that old experience in my life, so that I don't have to feel it, so I don't have to acknowledge that. And when we do that, then we've left ourselves totally off guard for when that moment does push its way into the present.
mm,
Because wait, I thought I'd sort of revised that and developed new
mhm,
meaning, and I'd sort of redeemed that and put it behind me. And instead now we're sort of like we're surprised when it shows up again, and now
mhm,
we're kicking ourselves and we're hard on ourselves. And so to simply recognize that, your if there's a part of you that feels hurt, and by the way, when you get into this level of it, and in the book, we talk about this a little bit, when you get into this level of it, when you get to this part of you that is now from your past and hurt and pushing its way into the present, that hurt, when you really settle down into it, usually has something to do with loneliness. And I define loneliness as feeling unseen, misunderstood, or unsupported, right? And I find it very helpful to just sort of simply say the part of me that felt unseen when he was 12 will always feel unseen. And so my job now, when that part of me shows up, is to see that part of it, not sort of try to write it off, get rid of it, fix it, heal it, eliminate it, transform it, redeem it, all the things we do to spiritually bypass the actual emotional work, but to actually hold space for it and to see it and go, oh yeah, gosh, I don't have to remember what it was like to be 12 because I'm actually in a 12-year-old's nervous system right now in this moment.
Hmm. Can you tell me those 3 words again? So, for loneliness.
Yeah, unseen, misunderstood, and unsupported.
Okay.
Uh, yep,
Yeah. So, just to bring this to like a fatherhood level for a second,
sure.
dads, I want you to hear this in 2 things, and I want you to give your opinion on this, Kelly, is one, dads, we have this incredible opportunity to like walk alongside our kids and make sure that they aren't lonely in a way, right? That we see them, we hear them. It's like it doesn't take a whole bunch of time. It's not impossible. You could make any level of money, have any level of job, and you can provide those things. And you're going to screw it up as well. And again, as like a faith-based person, uh
Mm,
helping our kids to also go like, hey, dad is going to let you down, and
mm,
pointing them to like the ultimate, right, your creator. What are your thoughts on
mm.
that? Because it's like you talk about it's like your umbilical cord is cut. Part of life
Mhm.
is this separation,
Yeah,
which
separation.
sucks and hurts.
Yes.
um but part of me, I guess a big part of me, feels like the reason that we have that feeling is it's supposed to be drawing us into this bigger story,
Mm.
potentially. So any thoughts or feedback on that?
I mean, I love that you took it in the direction of fatherhood, because I often say the wisest father to your 6-year-old child is your 6-year-old self,
Hmm.
right? The wisest father to your 12-year-old child is your 12-year-old self. There's a part of you that remembers what it was like to be 12
Mm-hmm.
and what it was like to be a 12-year-old who wanted to be seen and wanted to be understood and wanted to be supported. So your deepest intuition about how to meet those needs in your kids will come from the part of you that hurts, right? That didn't get those things. And of course, there'll be a tendency to want to overcorrect,
Right.
and you're getting at that too, which I appreciate. Which is that, well, I want to make sure they feel totally seen and totally understood and totally supported, so they don't develop this loneliness and they don't, end up triggered later in life. And it's just not the way it works.
Right. Right.
It
And that's
does.
tough.
Yes, it's just not the way it works. Ram Dass says, if you're here in life school, you might as well take the curriculum. And
Hmm.
I think learning how to navigate separation and loneliness is part of the curriculum. And and so I'll give you a good example. My oldest, who's now 22, living on his own in Chicago, he was probably 17. It was a rough year. He definitely felt like he should be independent at 17. He came to us one day and he's like, I just met somebody online and I want to go meet them. They're up in like northern Wisconsin. We live in outside of Chicago. And we're like, no. Well, it's just for the weekend. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And he says, well, here, let me explain. And he sat us down. He gave us all the reasons that he could be trusted, and he thought through all the contingencies. And I did a really good job of sitting there and seeing him, right, and really
Hmm.
paraphrasing. And at the end of it, he says, do you understand what I'm saying? Yes, I totally understand. Okay, so I've got seeing and I've got understanding. He goes, so can I go? And I was like, no. And he lost his mind. He
Hmm.
wasn't being supported. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think even in the best rock star parenting situations, our kids experience some of that loneliness
Hmm.
experience. They're certainly going to experience it out in the rest of the world. And so recognizing that it's not our job to save them from
Hmm.
separation.
Yeah.
It's our job to be as present as possible to them as we can be while holding healthy boundaries. Um, and in the book, I say somewhere the goal is that they feel separate but not severed, right? Like
Hmm.
that we can be two separate people with different goals and wants and wishes, and that hurts. But you're not severed. We're here for you. And so hopefully that's the place we end up.
All right, my friends, you've been hearing me talk about the Genesis program through Rise of Kings, and I am incredibly excited to invite you to it as well as be a part of it. Rise of Kings has helped thousands of men over the last 5 years discover the reality of their identity, and now they have launched the Genesis program, which is for young men ages 13 to 17. And here's the idea. You as a father would take your son to this 2-day event to start to initiate a conversation and an awareness around what it means to be a man. But the conversation would really be between you and your son. And then after the 2-day event, once we expose your sons to the 4 pillars, to what it means to be a man, then we work with you and your son. I'm actually the coach for the mastermind program. You got Mondo Davis, who does the 2-day event, incredible man, 11 children. He's currently working with his 16-year-old son. I'm working with my 16-year-old son. So you guys, this is fresh, this is real, this matters. So we want to invite you to the 2-day event with you and your son. Then after that, I'll be the coach for the 6-month mastermind, where I'm working with you every 2 weeks. And then I'm working with your sons every 2 weeks, with the idea that we're helping you to really step into what does it look like to help transition your son from a boy into a man. This is something you won't want to miss. It is worth the time, the resources to really help your son see who he is young and early, so that he can love, lead, serve a family and the kingdom moving forward at a young age. Please go to riseupkings.com/FFN to register. You and your son would love to see you in the program. Man, it is messy and beautiful, this opportunity we have to be fathers and navigate these kinds of things as a human being ourselves, and then work with our kids to do this as well. I just want to backtrack just a minute and then ask you a couple questions. But I've been trying to honor Sabbath. It's a wrestle for me, and I was at my daughter's track meet about 5-6 weeks ago. And I'm sitting there going like, drove 2 hours. I'm going to be here for 4 hours for like roughly 3 minutes of watching her run, roughly, because ish, maybe not even that. And so I sit there and I go,
track meets and swim meets, man. That's a lot of downtime.
I'm like, I would love to be on my computer or whatever. And I'm like, God, what can I do right now? And I had this like, hey, you've been wanting to read Kelly's new book. And so I'm like, okay. So I pop the headphones in and I walk. Like in between it, I walk. And I will forever remember I'm walking at this high school, the other side of the island here in Hawaii, and I'm walking by the pool, and you're talking about this, the 9 defenses, and you come to control. And I'm like, oh shit. It like hit me so hard. It's like, I'll forever remember sitting there, right? Because it's like easy when you're listening to this being like, oh, I could see this in my wife, and I could see this in this person and this person. And then you come to it's like hit you in the face kind of thing. So then on the way home, I'm like to my daughter, like, this book is amazing. Let's go find a podcast. We listened to the Front Row Dad episode that you and John did, which was wonderful. So guys, I recommend go listening to that if you find this valuable. And then I get home and I literally watch myself
do it,
unravel the whole freaking night with my wife. It's like I watch my heart open and close. I watch my defenses go up. I watch myself not give an F, and just like I just watch it all happen.
Yep.
And so the last 6 weeks have been interesting in having an awareness to this, and then seeing myself do the very thing that I don't want to do. And I'm sure that I'm getting better at it, but you've talked about triggering. The example of Will Smith in the book is incredible, and we won't give that away. I think people should that should hit you for the first time when you're reading it. It's really probably just an incredible gift for all of us. But when you think about the defenses that each of us have, the one that really popped up for me was controlling.
Yeah.
Maybe just give like an overview of like when your heart closes, when you're triggered. These are the kinds of things to be aware of. Like what flares up.
Yeah. Yeah. I say I'm not a control freak, but I'm a control sneak, which is probably what you were being confronted with in that moment.
Yes.
From one control sneak to another.
Guilty.
So basically what I lay out there is I want to as people are having exactly the experience you had that night of like, oh, now that I know what this open and closed hearted thing is, and I know how I get triggered and start to react when my heart closes, like I'm starting to see it happening all the time. And I wanted to give people sort of a leg up in observing their closed-hearted defensive reactions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I list three categories. The first two are common to every mammal on the planet, which is the fight or flight reaction, right?
Right.
Hiding or fighting. But we human beings have this wonderful frontal lobe we've developed. So we don't just hide from a threat or fight a threat. We try to manage or control a threat too. Um, and we have very sneaky ways of doing that. And so I list them in the book from sort of the most subtle to the more obvious. So the first one is what I call selling, which is coming to an interaction or a conversation with an agenda that you're not disclosing. Right.
Oh,
I know. I know.
that stings, man.
It's my hallmark, man. I and then the second is what I call mentoring, which is this is a little bit more aggressive, but not always a ton. Which is, well, here you're a problem, or you have a problem, and I'm going to fix it for you. Sort
Mm-hmm.
of, I've elevated myself above you a little bit, and then obviously the most obvious one is when you dominate or try to literally control or force someone to do something. But that selling one is a powerful one for me. I was called out by my own coach, and in the middle of that conversation, it sort of hit me that you can either have an agenda or you can connect, but you can't do both at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably has done more to facilitate real connection for me in my relationships, that one insight, than almost anything else, because I'm an agenda dude. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm an achiever. I want to accomplish things. So when I show up to a conversation, I got something I want to get out of it. And my people can just feel that coming from a mile away.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
they're like, okay, what is he wanting? My wife in particular, what's he wanting out of this? And I have to check my agenda at the door. And if I can't, I have to confess my agenda. Say, this is what I want out of it. Now we're in authentic connection, at least if I've confessed it. Right. So, the control pillar of those defensive reactions is sneaky and really important to tune into.
Man, I had like a oh shit or a damn it moment yesterday. I
Mm-hmm.
had like a call with my coach. I was journaling about it afterwards. We had been talking about communication. I was like, man, I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like I'm struggling with communication. And I walk up to the house for something. And as I'm walking back on the grass back to my office, I I was like, bro, your heart's closed most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yeah.
realize it's like I've trying to be I think I live somewhat in like this Christian religious world. It like as a let's call it 12-year-old Ned to like do the right thing, to be good. And so
Mm-hmm.
I've taken this into like I want to be a really intentional father, and it's not just because I have the podcast. It's not because I think I've moved away from like how I want people to perceive me per se,
Mm-hmm.
but it's like I know how important this is. Like my
Yes.
marriage is so important, my kids are so important. And so anyways, yesterday it hit me because I'm having trouble. I feel as though I have trouble communicating
Mm,
unless I'm in control. Right now I'm in
mm,
control with you because I have I
right.
have my outline next to me. You're here. I'm going to ask you, ask you questions, whatever. Anyways, the realization I had and going into the agenda thing that you just talked about is I think I show up to most conversations
Yeah.
with my family not necessarily, it is with an agenda, but it's more than that. It's with a closed heart because I'm
Yeah.
already assuming that they're going to have some sort of pushback on my
Mm,
desire to do something well for the family. I mean,
yes.
literally, it could be say, "Hey, we're going to go on a hike,"
Yep.
and I show up to that question or suggestion with a closed heart
That's
already.
right. That's right. Yep. It is a little bit disconcerting when you realize that you are walking around most of the time with a closed heart like
Bro, it's
that.
like can make me cry right now.
Dude, but like I like what I try to tell people is another word for that is just adulthood. Like like the stage here's the stages of life. You were a child and your heart was open, and then you got hurt. And
Mhm,
eventually you developed enough cognitive capacity to go, oh wait, I don't have to let this happen so much anymore. Or at least I don't need to let it get in. Right. And so you
mhm.
learned how to close your heart. And that became your way of walking through the world. That's adulthood. And Jesus calls us to become like children again if we want to enter into the kingdom of heaven, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I believe somewhere in that is to learn how to open your heart again and have a second childhood in which you walk through the world, despite all of the evidence to the contrary that you should not
Right.
open your heart because people will
Right.
hurt you and but like to choose that open-heartedness, knowing that your closed-heartedness is creating more suffering than it's preventing now. That's the second childhood. And so dude, I know it's a lot to sort of take in. It can be, but you're not alone. In fact, most of the 8 billion of us are with you.
Yeah. Okay. So this leads to like, if I could hold on to this awareness, you said, and I think you said this in the book, it might've been in a podcast, which I want to bring up another one you were on, but you mentioned 90% of growth happens from triggered moments. So like, hey, it's cool. I have 250 books behind me or whatever. It's like, oh, rad. You read books. Cool. And it's easy to like slip into that because I'm again in control of a moment sitting in my office by myself reading a book, and I might run from the conflict. And so you did a podcast with it's called Marriage on the Daily with Julie B. Super good. That whole one's more like from a marriage perspective, guys. So I highly encourage you to go listen to that. But one of the things you said in that is that the here's what it says. You talk about the engine of your marriage is to continue to learn more about yourself and your spouse.
Yep.
So if we think two things real quick is like, okay, 90% of my growth is going to happen from triggering. I'd say like 99.9% of that's going to happen in my marriage.
Right, exactly.
For me, maybe not you guys. But if I could hold on to the belief that I'm growing in these moments and that the engine of my marriage is these opportunities in a sense, like what's your continued expansion on that?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing it up. I mean, what you're getting at is sort of like accruing intellectual knowledge versus sort of personal growth. And I think most personal growth, is, at least in relationships, is emotional growth, right? Is increases in emotional intelligence as much as intellectual intelligence. And so that's the moments where you're going to grow, to heal, to evolve emotionally are the moments where you're triggered. Or the moments where your heart is closed, which are overlap tremendously. So yeah, I think a lot of that happens there. I think for me personally, a real shift happened. So when my entryway into this was recognizing that I was doing a lot of damage to my marriage and to my kids and to my family when I was triggered. And I came across Michael Singer's wonderful quote, "Don't let anything in life be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it." And I said on New Year's Eve, and I said a New Year's resolution, moment to moment, I'll notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. And when I started, I assumed the goal was to just not have my heart close anymore. Right.
Yeah.
And that mentality or mindset persisted, and it actually became a stumbling block for me, because I would see moments where my heart started to close as yet another failure, versus an opportunity to learn more about myself and go, oh, if I'm being triggered, there's a part of me here that feels unsafe in the moment. Like if my wife says I left the toilet seat up and my nervous system activates, it means a part of me thinks I'm in mortal danger when she says that I left the toilet seat up. There is clearly a part of me that is in need of safety and healing here. So I made this shift, and it's illustrated in the book and throughout the book that, our triggered moments are just it's like life is saying, hey, you don't have to go searching for opportunities to grow. You don't even have to guess at what your opportunities to grow are. We're going to provide you with those opportunities. It's when your nervous system's activated, you get triggered and your heart starts to close. That's where you get to grow. And that has become the mentality that guides me now. So that when this happens, I go, okay, what's here? What's here that I'm not seeing?
And then what do you do when you notice, right? So if I start to notice, what are a couple of the tools that you use to then open your heart back up?
So, and I mean, that's essentially what the book's about, right? Is the 9-step process for being able to open your heart back up and to learn how to live with an open heart. Number one is you will not be able to open your heart if your nervous system is activated.
Mm,
You will fail every single time. Your entire body is telling you that you're not safe, and it would be very unwise to open up to the situation if
yeah.
you were unsafe, right? Like if a shark's got your leg, to be like, oh, I'm just going to sort of open my heart to this experience. That's insane, right?
Right.
And so if your nervous system is acting like a shark has got your leg, even though it was just your teenager rolling their eyes at you, right?
Hmm.
As long as your nervous system is activated, you will not be able to open your heart. So number one, we have to really recognize how fundamental learning how to self-regulate is,
Hmm.
and getting that nervous system back to neutral, teaching your body, hey, listen, we're safe right now. There's nothing to fear. All she did was say that the toilet seat was up. There's nothing existentially threatening right now. So being able to get into that sense of safety and groundedness, um, and then pivoting. The temptation then is once you get calm is to jump right back into the interaction,
Hmm.
disciplining your teenager for the eye rolling, but then actually pausing and pivoting and going, man, what was the experience that just bloomed within me
Hmm.
that I started to feel like I was in mortal danger. Um, and what I say in the book is that if you don't know what you're reacting to, you'll blame who you're reacting to,
Mm. Oh
right?
my
So,
gosh, that's so huge.
right, you're with your wife, and something that is done or said triggers this emotional reaction in you, and the temptation is to say to blame her and say don't do that thing because that didn't feel good in here, and instead to just pause and go, what didn't feel good in here?
Mm.
What what were you feeling in there? What was that like? And just to begin to create some space to interact with that experience rather than always interacting with the problem you think that the other person is.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I love how you point out this thing is like if I'm running into the same issue with multiple people, it's
Yes.
really about something going on in my inner world
Yes.
than something in my outer world.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, dude, so many nuggets, so much we could talk about, but there's two things I want to dig into.
Sure.
Now, this chapter called Set Boundaries Without Battles. I'm going to have to
Mm,
come back to this several times. This what do you call it? Your the interdependence intersection framework figure. Okay, one, I feel like this word interdependence it's either new or it's new to me or it's because like my kids are I'm in this season of like I see that they're all going to be out of my house in the next,
mm,
5 to 7 years. And so there's this realization as a father, I don't want my kids to be dependent on me forever, obviously.
right.
I also, as I'm studying family from a biblical perspective
Mm,
more as of late, I loathe this idea of this like nuclear family starting over every 25 years. So it's like
mm,
I'm wrestling with what does it look like for me to be a dad to adults and to, future
totally.
families without it being this weird patriarchal, like, come live on my,
Yes.
compound and drink my Kool-Aid, which I hope for the compound, but not the Kool-Aid. Um, this whole section is beautiful, but there's a statement that you say, okay, so let me just end with this. I do want to teach my kids to be interdependent and have me be involved, have God be involved, have their family. So there's this idea of interdependence. But from a father's perspective, on page 146, you make
Mm,
this statement, and I think this could be really helpful for us dads in helping our kids transition, is you say the path from this kind of codependence to healthy interdependence almost always runs through independence.
mhm.
And so my question here is, as dads navigating teenagers, especially,
Yep.
it's like I don't want to lose them, right? But
Yep.
there's this sense of independence that they need to feel and experience,
Yep.
I think, for them to come back to the idea of interdependence. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think that's 100% true. And uh, I think our experience with our 22-year-old bears that out. I mentioned he's at
Yeah,
17. He
yeah.
was like, I need to be independent right away. At some point that year,
Uh-huh.
my wife made this sort of just offhand. She goes, I feel like I'm 9 months pregnant again, and this kid just needs to get out,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and we went through maybe a couple of years of that,
Mm,
and now I would describe our relationship as really interdependent.
mm,
I think he has an appreciation,
mm-hmm,
for the 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 gift of being able to lean into a home space where you don't have to bear all the responsibilities of life, but still then able to go back out into the world and do life on his own, but call us when he needs us, and to
Mm-hmm.
recognize that mutual support is possible. Um, so super proud of how he's doing that. Yeah, in the book, I mean, those terms, I realized it was about 2 years ago. I was speaking at an entrepreneurial women's event in Costa Rica, and it was my first like public showing of this whole concept of open-heartedness. And I was just so
Mm-hmm.
excited. I'm like, I've got the practice that can turn any trigger in your relationship into togetherness. And I want to tell you about it. And the women were like, this sounds terrifying. Like, this sounds horrible. Like, do I have to tell my employees everything if I'm open-hearted? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I'm setting good boundaries now. Will I have to let people walk all over me? And I realized that people assume that an open heart means a lack of boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
basically, both on what comes into you and what gets out of you, right? And so I had to clarify very quickly in the book, and then dedicate a whole chapter to it. This concept that an open heart doesn't make your boundaries weaker; it makes your boundaries wiser. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then, in fact, we go through this phase where the only way we know how to set a boundary is by closing our heart. So we create an
Mm-hmm.
emotional boundary. But what we actually want to do is we want to learn how to set boundaries that help us keep our heart open. Um, and that these two things exist not in parallel with each other, but perpendicular. That creates the intersection in the book, so that you can set open-hearted boundaries, and those boundaries, those practical boundaries, allow you to keep your heart open in relationship, rather than always setting a boundary because your heart is already closed and now you're just in a fight, right? Yeah.
I mean, dude, really, as like this chapter sits in the middle of your book, it's like this whole it's like a teaching on its own. It's an awareness on its own of like I really don't want people to miss this. Some of this stuff I wish that me and my wife would have known 20 years ago when we first got married. Um,
So I was in the middle of discovering this. My second son was 15. We were driving him around, of course, because he's still 15. He's very much a teenager, and
mm,
I was driving him somewhere one day, and he was just being teenagey toward me, and it was not pleasant. And I like I was getting triggered, right?
mhm,
My heart was closing, and now I'm tempted to set a closed-hearted boundary, which is basically going to be like, get your butt out of the car,
mhm,
right? Like, that's a
mhm,
boundary. Done.
mhm,
I'm done driving you. And so I was in the middle of really learning how to set open-hearted boundaries, and so I asked myself, what would I think most parents at that point think, well, if I stay open-hearted, I just have to keep taking this. Just sort of be
mhm.
patient with him. He's a teenager. Like, no, I think it's possible to be open-hearted and have a boundary. So I said to him, I go, Quinn, I love you unconditionally, but I don't drive you unconditionally.
Mm,
And if we're going to continue this car ride together, I need to be treated better, because it doesn't feel good. It's hurting.
mm,
And he heard it. And I think his way of handling that on that car ride, it wasn't to suddenly be Mr. Happy-go-lucky. He stayed quiet, which is fine.
mhm.
That's all I asked. Quit treating me that way. And so I get really excited. It's why there's a whole chapter in the book about what becomes possible in relationships when you learn how to keep your heart open and have
Mm.
boundaries at the same time. Boundaries become a bridge rather than a battle when that happens.
Yeah, because and you gave a great example in the book, and even in this example you share here, it's so that you're not then sitting there in your mind thinking this kid's such an asshole, right? So
Totally.
you're protecting yourself, and that's the open-hearted if people aren't like gathering that. But I feel like so many of us set boundaries. We think we're setting boundaries, and we're setting boundaries for maybe somebody not stepping across a line, but we're still living inside of there being no boundary. We're still pissed off and angry about things.
That's right.
And that's the miss, is like you're giving so much energy to this. Go ahead.
There's an emotional rule that I can't find an exception to, which is that the resentment you feel today is a boundary you didn't set yesterday.
Hmm.
So like you if you are being passive in your boundary setting, you will develop resentment, and then you will almost definitely set future boundaries from that place of resentment,
Hmm.
which actually is really toxic to relationships. So
Hmm.
an unhealthy boundary set from resentment is it's just not productive for connection.
Yeah, I would assume that then when I set this boundary that has to do with something of old, it's just keeping like the resentment fire stoked. It's not really doing anything to help your relationship with this new person.
Yes. One of my, like, not favorite because it's such a good illustration, I don't love it, but it's one of the more popular social media memes around boundaries is, um, "If you don't like my boundaries, then you're probably the reason I need them." You know, it's like this sassy, like, I'm like, "Yeah, that's probably not doing anything to resolve your resentment, it's just fueling it," as you just
Yeah,
pointed out.
you're still
Yeah,
posting about it because you're angry and
yeah,
you're the only one who's angry
yeah,
about this.
yeah.
Man, super freeing. That whole section, the figure, the seeing the open-hearted, closed heart, boundaried, unboundaried, dependent, codependent. Gosh dang it. I realize there's some areas that there's some serious codependency that I have. And then the
Mm,
independence and then moving into interdependent. I just say, man, people live in that chapter, spend some time there.
mm,
It's going to give your life so much freedom if you can start to see when you're in those quadrants and understand the freedom, the I mean, you talk about it like when you get to that interdependent ones, like kind of waking up and the world looks different, you
totally.
know? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I'd want listeners to know is that, like, in that chapter, we talk about how boundaries are actually the third stage of a cascade in relationships where you just once you're open-hearted, you just start to tell people what you want. And that's
Mm,
actually like a boundary in its embryonic stage is just an expression of what you want. And when you open-heartedly tell people what you want, you will be blown away by how
mm,
often they help you get it.
mm.
Whereas if you let off with resentment and boundaries and this is what I'm gonna, then they're set up to push back against you and to be in a battle. But start off with open-hearted expressions of what you want, and all of a sudden people start to support you a lot more.
It seems if you lead that way and it's truly not from like a defensive control or mentoring or selling or like manipulation,
Yeah.
then when they don't give it to you, you're sort of unattached from that, right? It's not going to necessarily piss you off. That's
Yep.
kind of their thing. Like,
Yep.
okay, if you don't want to. But I think once they start to see the trust, because sometimes I think this, I don't know, maybe a front row dad thing. I don't recall. But I do think as I shift and grow and do this stuff, Sarah will still be arguing with an old version of Ned. So like I got to give her
Mm,
grace and space for be like, hey, I know that in the past that was like a
mm,
controlling or manipulative version of me. And if you're experiencing me that way, like my heart really isn't that. And I'm also
mm.
learning. So I think having space for people, like if you're going to ask for something, like give them space to see that you're not being a tool about this or manipulative.
Boy, you just put your finger on something, which is, one of the I went through it. One of the classic sort of pitfalls of this open-heartedness process is that your heart actually does starts to shift and you do start to show
Mm,
up open-heartedly and your people assume that your heart is closed and so they keep their hearts closed to you. And
mm,
if in that moment you do exactly what you just did, which is to be able to keep your heart open and go, I get it. Like you aren't expecting this version of me. Now
mhm,
you know you're really practicing open-heartedness. But if you show up open-heartedly and they don't immediately open their heart to you and you go, "What the heck? Like
yeah.
I'm different now." You realize that that was actually a closed heart and clever disguise. You were trying to control them. I'll show up
Hmm.
open-heartedly, so you'll show up open-heartedly. We can be back in connection. And so the real test of your open-heartedness is how you react when you don't get the outcome that, of course, you would
Mm.
hope for. Yeah.
Well, then this kind of leads to the last question that I have, or what really want guys to hear is I truly believe that men have a God given opportunity, responsibility to steward their family well, right? It's
Mhm.
like, it's so bizarre when you really think about it. Like, I'm going to go find a woman and marry her and then spend my life with her. Then we're going to have kids and they show up as babies and like, I'm responsible. Like, this is wild. This whole story,
It
but
is.
it's wild. But your last chapter, it's about power and
Mm,
I've got this underlined and highlighted page 194, the
mm,
difference between control and power. And
mhm.
and I think as men, maybe we weren't raised to know how to be a man, maybe we weren't invited into manhood, but we have a wild amount of power. And
Mm.
I think so much of the time we don't really know how to use it, so we kind of maybe like default to control.
Yes. Yeah.
So thinking about the father who's like got this enormous amount of God-given power,
Yep.
how do they tap into that versus control?
Yep. A couple of things I'd say. Your presence is your power. The quality of presence and energy that you show up with is your power. And it part of it is an act of faith to trust that more is caught than taught, right? And I share in that chapter, that last chapter of the book, an experience that I had it literally a year to the day after I had made the resolution that moment to moment, I'll notice my heart closing and try to open it back up. We just gotten home from a Christmas family trip to Mexico. We were sitting at the table on the next New Year's Eve and starting to plan our family intentions and goals for the year. And my wife said, "You should tell the kids about what you've been practicing for the last year." I had not even mentioned it to them, not so much as a word. Now, I'm an historically easily triggered traveler. I don't handle travel stress well. I tell some funny stories about that in the book, but we're in that moment. And so I tell them a little bit of what we've talked about today about open-heartedness. And my daughter looks at me and she says, "That must be why every time something went wrong on the way to Mexico, I looked at you and I felt calm." And dude, that was the first time it hit me that even though I wasn't telling anybody about my practice of open-heartedness, it was having a tremendous impact on them. Like that the calmness and the presence with which I was showing up was now the space in which she could feel safer to open her heart. And so one of the things that really landed for me that day is we don't have power over our people, but we do have power around our people, right? That a soothed nervous system soothes nervous system, a calm soul calms souls, an open heart opens hearts. And you don't open your heart in order to open your people's hearts, because again, that's just a closed heart in clever disguise.
Yep.
Um, you open your heart because it's your own reward. You're no longer trapped inside the prison of your closed heart. You're free. And what it starts to do is it starts to set your people free.
So, dude, like I just, as you're saying this, what I wrote down is you just led with presence is power. And I think a lot of times the reason why men don't step into that is they feel like they're supposed to go fix their shit first.
Right.
And my guys, this whole book, it's really freeing because you don't have to fix your stuff. You have to be aware that your past is going to keep coming into the present. And if you think about the most connected you feel with people is when they're authentic, real, and vulnerable with the reality of messy life.
Yep.
And you can do that with your wife. You can do that with your kids. That stuff's going to be there, but you get to do it together. And so you don't have to go fix yourself before you can live in power as a father.
Thank you for saying that, man. Every guy needs to hear that. Yeah, it's not, you don't go on some retreat and then come back ready to do it. And by the way, if you think you are, then you'll get 10 minutes at home and be triggered again and then wonder what. Right? One of my favorite things that has happened over the last year, to your point, that the goal with open-heartedness is to show up authentically and non-defensively. I sat down at the dinner table one night. I was late to the table, sat down at the dinner table, and I just had a moment of pause while they're talking. And I was like, man, I feel super sad about something. And I have no idea what it is. And I was like, I don't think I want to turn this into a dad show by like letting that all come through and burst into tears. So I said, hey, does anybody else ever feel sad and you just don't know why? And my daughter, 16 years old at the time, she looks at me, gives me like a side eye, real intentional, dramatic. She goes, "Why do you ask?" And I said, "Well, I asked because I'm feeling sad right now and I don't know why." And she said, "Oh, I thought you were asking because I'm feeling sad right now and I don't know why." And it was like deepest connection I'd had with her in a long time, just sitting at the dinner table, not because I figured out how to feel happy, but because I'm able to recognize when I'm feeling sad and be open-hearted about that. And she was able to step into that with me. So I love the encouragement you're giving to guys right now. You don't have to get it all together. You just, like, life and relationship is the curriculum for getting it all together.
Man, I love it. Kelly, thank you, my friend, seriously, for this. Guys, as you hear this, if you're walking away from this like 50-minute conversation going, wow, some real nuggets, realize that there's a man who's lived 40 years wrestling through this and then spent hundreds of hours writing it down so that you and I could grow in 50 minutes. So please go to Amazon, buy 3 books right now. When they show up at your house, don't be too busy to write a review, and then read one and give two away and spread this. Like, men need this. People need this. It's beautiful. And so, Dr. Kelly, thank you. Any other like ways people can find you, learn more, etc.?
Well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Yeah, if you read the book, even if you don't, and you want to sort of jump into the process with me of turning your triggers into togetherness, practicing open-heartedness, I have a community online called the Less Triggered Tribe. We camp out on Substack. It's drkellyflanagan.substack.com. And just this actually in 2 afternoons, we're getting together for our monthly group coaching call. Where I'll share some nuggets that have evolved for me over the last month in all of this. And then we just get into this incredible conversation and on like real-time group coaching. So please feel free to check out the Substack, Less Triggered Tribe. I think it's drkellyflanagan.substack.com.
Love it. Man, my friend, thank you so much. Really beautiful. Appreciate you. And I look forward to our paths crossing again in the future.
Thanks, Ned. Great to be here.
All right, until next time. Okay, what did I tell you? Incredible, right? Like I wish I could live in this more. I want to go check out his community. I want to dig into this. I've spent hours reading, studying, listening to this book, and I want to step into, really, I think my biggest takeaway is just start to notice every day when my heart closes, and then pivot and open my heart to these relational situations that I don't want to show up with a closed heart to. My friends, if this was valuable, which if you're here, it had to be, write a review. Whatever podcast platform, just real quick, write a review. And then I highly encourage you, think of a friend who you know, how many of you have a friend who's wrestling with their marriage, who's wrestling with a teenager, who's wrestling with their kid? All of us, right? If we have a friend, life is messy. Nobody's living a perfect life. It doesn't exist. It's not supposed to. Shoot them a text. Hey, dude, I listened to this. It really resonated with me. I think you dig it. And just shoot them a link to the podcast episode. It helps spread the word that fatherhood matters. And you and I can't have major impact on our own. We have to be in a tribe. We have to do this together. So we got to be encouraging each other. All right, write a review, share it with a friend. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening to Fatherhood Field Notes podcast. What you do matters. Do not be like everybody else. Be yourself. That's who your kids, your spouse, and your community needs. This is your guide, Ned Shout. Together, let's rebel against the view that fatherhood has little impact, and let's create lives engaged in mastering the craft of fatherhood. Much love, dudes. I look forward to hanging out with you next time.